But
Yeah,
anyway,
cool.
David, it's the first time we're actually physically talking. But this is my friend Eric Miller, longtime friend in the Scouts. We grew up in the Boy Scouts together, just kind of
Cool.
best friends, and both kind of dove into the whiskey side of things pretty early on and started making a little hobby out of it. And I've spoke a little bit about you to Eric, but I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of what you do and how you do it.
Oh, well, cool. Well, first of all, nice to meet you, Eric, and
Thank you, sir.
nice to talk to you, Eric. In finally, instead of just on text.
Right.
But I was in Boy Scouts my whole life too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I made it all the way to life. I never did my Eagle project, so turned 18, and that was that.
Well,
But I had a lot of fun, a lot of good memories. You know, but that's a fun Well, it was a fun program. Now it's not the same. I don't think. But you asked me how I got started. Do you mean specifically with wild turkey, or with bourbon in general, or both? Or
kind of tell you bourbon story. I know it just from watching you, but I don't think Eric has seen any of your stuff. So you want to tell our audience too?
Sure. Okay. So my first experience with bourbon would be in college. So that would have been in the mid '90s, and that was just really, shooter stuff and mixing with Jim and Coke or Jack and Coke or Crown and Coke, something like that. And that was kind of my drink for the longest time. I would have a beer every once in a while, but I was more, a bourbon and Coke or bourbon and ginger kind of person. I guess it was around 2013, I started like getting into whiskey seriously. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law kind of had a nice little small collection, mostly like fancy Crown Royal type stuff. And, tried some of that with him, on the rocks, and decided, that was fine, it didn't need a mix or anything. And so I started exploring different whiskeys, whether it was Canadian or Irish or Scotch, or eventually landed on bourbon. And like anybody else that gets in, you start reading blogs, you start getting every magazine and book you can find, try to figure out exactly, what's the best. Everybody's looking for the best. And what it turns out being is it's different for everybody, is the best is relative, it's not a fixed thing. So I was trying different bourbons, and one day I, opted for a wild turkey. I think it was like a pint or 375, whatever you want to call it, at checkout, and wasn't expecting much out of it, because I remember it being like the shooter in college. It wasn't anything, fancy by any means. So when I tried it seriously, like neat, I realized that it was a high quality whiskey, and exceeded my expectations in every way. And that kind of threw me for a loop, because, you go in expecting one thing. I love it when you go into a whiskey expecting one thing and you get another. Sometimes that's a bad thing, but a lot of times it's a good thing. And I just started diving into the wild turkey catalog, trying different things, but, mainly just centered around 101, until I had someone, essentially reach out to me and say, "Hey, have you tried Dusty Turkey?" And I was like, "No." And he, kindly gave me some samples, a CGF from 92 and a 81 101 8-year. And when I tried that 101 from 1981, that was it. I mean, it was like, I was down the rabbit's hole. And
sold.
Yeah. I mean, I tried every modern expression I could trying to get that profile, realizing that I was never going to get it, but it was okay, because I discovered, a whole new world of whiskey. And it wasn't just the profile that was a huge aspect of it, but it was the story, of the Russells, and the authentic quality of that distillery and brand and product that they make. And then, it's like an underdog too. So, it's fun to kind of root for the underdog. So it had all those elements combined, and I was sold. That was and remains, my favorite brand. So enough to write about it all the time.
There you go. When I dove into wild turkey, I was like, okay, well, what am I looking for in a bourbon? Looking for something that's 6 to 8 years old, something that's not super hot, and this is kind of when I'm first diving into it. Something that's not super hot, so about about 100 proof. Something that's got that bold flavor and not that expensive. And lo and behold, you get Wild Turkey 101.
You're right. I mean, that's the thing with Wild Turkey. It's so approachable as far as availability and price goes. And I think that even on flavor, there's a lot of people that get intimidated by the 101 proof, especially if they're new to whiskey or if they're not really a whiskey enthusiast. They look at that and they say, gosh, 101 proof, that's going to kill you, And, after a few dabbles into it, I think they realize that it's not that bad at all, as far as like the ABV. Yeah, I mean, to go from Isla Scotch, as your starting point,
Right.
wow. So, and I mean, really, when it comes to Scotch, I'm not a big Scotch drinker. I do have a few bottles. I probably buy maybe 3 or 4 Scotch bottles a year. And it's always Isla. So, I mean, I'm real big into Ardbeg 10. I keep Ardbeg 10 at all times. I have
that wee beastie is not bad either.
I haven't tried the Wee Beastie yet, so
it's pretty interesting.
So it's 5 years, right?
5 years old. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So that'd be interesting to taste.
Yeah.
I like on the opposite end, I like the Aberlour Abna.
Yep.
Total sherry bomb, but it's got so much spice that because I'm not a big fan of the heavy sherry where it's like almost like you're just drinking wine with whiskey in it.
Right.
I like it to have like that whiskey aspect, and Abna does that. It's got that youthful spice. I think that to me, like when people want a comparable Scotch to Wild Turkey, to me, Aberlour Abna is that's like the Wild Turkey Scotch. It's weird, but you know what I'm saying? Because it's got that spice to it. So
I got you.
I didn't mean to steal the conversation, but I mean, I think that's neat that you started on Isla Scotch. That's crazy.
No, this is what this show's about, man. What
Cool.
about you, Eric?
I wish I had found Wild Turkey earlier in my whiskey drinking, because I bounced around, and Eric could tell you from brand to brand to brand. And I think if I'd found 101, maybe the second bottle that I ever tried, I'd have been hooked, just like you guys. The first bottle of 101 I actually bought was this year, which I know there's some mixed reviews in the diehard turkey community about that particular blend, but it's fantastic. It's got the.
You talking about that one that came out, the code that came out in February? That had the older stuff in it.
Oh, that was in a handle for and I don't know if it was every batch, but I think that it wasn't so much.
I sent in the laser code.
Okay.
Sent out.
I mean, I haven't tasted it, but from what I understand, it's a little bit more bitter and tannic than the typical 101, and that comes from a lot of people. So, I mean, if you like that, just fine. And I've had some other folks that have tasted it, and they said, yeah, it was a little bit, but it wasn't like, pour it down the drain like some folks were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I like an oakier whiskey anyway. So
okay.
I tried it. I was like, holy crap, this is only what, $20-$25 for this bottle. Where has this been all my life?
Yeah. Cool.
And then, I've jumped down the Russell's hole and the rare breed hole with Eric. Not to the extent of Eric, but
I'm a minor fish in that pond, man.
I don't know, man. You've got a nice little wall back there.
Most of them are open.
Yeah. Hey, that's the way to do it. The grand majority of mine are for sure. Now, I have a few that I've tucked away for special occasions and stuff like that, but I'm in no means a hoarder of anything. So besides, I only have so much room in my house.
So give us a brief little history on rye and Wild Turkey. You don't have to get into everything, but give us a brief little history, and then how the Russell's Rye came to be.
Sure. Okay. So traditionally, rye for Wild Turkey was a source product, much like the bourbon was a source product. But instead of being a Kentucky source product, it was a Maryland source product initially, Pennsylvania source product, and then there was some that was actually sourced from Illinois. This went on for many years until the 70s, when they acquired the distillery in Lawrenceburg, which was operating as JTS Brown at the time. And basically, at some point, Jimmy Russell decided he was going to start making rye himself.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy's not a big rye fan, so he changed the recipe from the traditional mash bills that had been, utilized in that Maryland and Pennsylvania whiskey, and changed it to a 52% rye, a barely legal, as they would say, Kentucky rye. And that started kind of like in the early mid 70s. Then the Wild Turkey rye label changed to a green label. People call it the Christmas rye. Before, it had looked very similar to 101 bourbon. It was just, it would say rye on it. There was a brown label rye for a very short period of time in the 70s. It's really hard to find. But the label changed to green whenever the Kentucky whiskey that Jimmy was distilling was used. Folks call it Christmas rye because it's got the green and the red. And that was really Wild Turkey's only rye expression for the longest time. In 2007, they introduced Russell's Reserve 6-year rye. And then the next rye expression came in 2011. They had the 81 rye come out. Mm-hmm. And then 2015, you saw the single barrel rye, Russell's Reserve single barrel rye come out. And then finally, you have Rare Breed Rye that has just come out this year. And then the only rye LE Cornerstone was last year. That's pretty much the rye catalog for Wild Turkey. 101 right now is, in the same basic label as Wild Turkey, but it's green, Right. And that's not as easily found as the bourbon. It's only sold in liters right now, which I've heard that's going to be changing. But the distribution is not as large as the bourbon by any means. So some states have a hard time getting it. But right. In a nutshell, that's Wild Turkey rye.
So on the Russell single barrel rye, and I've seen you do some posts about this before from some of the folks on secondary. It did picks briefly, mm-hmm. and it was just, did they quit just because they just realized they didn't have enough stock?
Well, from 2015 to 2017, you saw picks. There weren't a whole lot of them. I've heard different people throw out different numbers. I've seen less than 10. I've heard could be up to 15. I'm really not sure. I don't have that information. I can say that of the picks that I've tasted, which are all great, none of them were like mind blowing or anything better than what you can get on the store,
right.
The shelves. And if you think about, like, I hear some complaints a lot. They're like, well, I just wish they'd bring back the single barrel rye. Well, I do too, because I'd like to pick a rye barrel. But the same barrels that are being bottled and put on the shelf are the same barrels that you would be picking from. So
right.
Just because it doesn't have a label on it doesn't mean you're not getting a good rye barrel. So, go out and grab the retail Russell's Reserve single barrel rye, because those are the same barrels you would have been picking from,
Right.
So just because it doesn't have a sticker or a neck tag doesn't mean, it's not going to be good.
Fancy wax on it or something.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, their stocks are low. I mean, they used a good many of them for Cornerstone, and then they used, some of the well-aged barrels for Rare Breed Rye. And even that isn't a very large release right now.
Right.
So there's really just not a lot there to be doing these picks from. And Eddie, he's not going to just settle and say, well, okay, we'll just have younger rye barrels for the single barrel pick. He's not going to do that. He's going to wait till he has, enough barrels to introduce to the program that are going to be the profile that he wants to represent, Mm-hmm. So I think just having the retail product right now is more important than having picks. We haven't seen a TTB filing. You know how the Russell's single barrel, private selections have their own label. Okay. We haven't seen a TTB filing for the rye yet. The rye is still the retail label. So until we see that, I don't think there's going to be any chance for a rye pick. So, but again, folks don't need to get upset. They just need to buy the retail bottles. It's just going to be the same thing.
Right. Well, how about we dive into some whiskey, man?
Sure. What you got? What you want to jump into first?
We're going to hit the Russell's Reserve here.
The single barrel?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The green? Okay. All right. Yeah, mine is as far, everybody's into the codes and stuff. Okay. Let's see. This is a recent bottle I picked up. I believe this is a 2019. Let me pour it, then I'll put the cork on it, and that way I can flip it around if I need to.
My code is a LLGB2 71331, B008, or B006 5D0074.
Yeah, mine is the 270th day of, so it's, let's see, no, 27th day of, it's hard to see the numbers here. I'm thinking of the old codes too. So I've got HK, it looks like 27th, so the 27th day of, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So whatever that is.
By you, Eric.
What am I looking for?
The codes start off LL.
Okay,
that means nothing.
Where am I looking? I guess let me ask that question.
Okay, so at the bottom of the not underside, okay, but at the bottom of right, at the bottom there, you'll see.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, you kind of have to hold it up to the light there. Yeah. But the first two letters are really all you need to look for. So the first letter is the year. This is an H, so that's 2019, and then the second letter is the month in alphabetical order there.
So okay. I got GB.
So February of this year.
Okay.
Is that yeah?
Yeah, mine should be November, right? K should be 11. Should be November.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now with Russell's single barrel and my big hang up I have on rye is I'm not a fan. It's not the spice I'm not a fan of, but I'm not a fan of the dill flavors that you can get on some of the higher rye stuff.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I don't mind like High West's Midwinter's Rice Dram, because it's finished. That kind of that port kind of mellows that flavor out a little bit. But with this, it is a ginger and orange zest bomb.
Yeah. And I've not tried this one yet. I can already tell it's going to be one of those. I get like that nice junipery, piney kind of smell to it.
Yeah, it's citrus is a big note on the Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye. A lot of times for me, it's lemon zest, lemon squares. Mm-hmm. It can be more like orange zest, orange peel. A lot of citrus. The vanilla is more of for me, it's typically more of like a vanilla frosting or a vanilla icing.
Yep.
It's not like that dark, but yeah, exactly. It's not like that deep dark vanilla that you get in a bourbon,
right?
Or can get like where it's like vanilla bean or something. This is very much a sharper vanilla. Mm-hmm. Not a young vanilla, just a sharper vanilla. Right. It has a little spice to it. Of course, sometimes you can get black pepper, particularly like in rare breed rye. But it can be in the Russell's picks too. This is only my second pour of this 2019, by the way. So
I'll tell you one thing.
I agree with the ginger, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's no problem. I'll tell you one thing. As far as what this reminds me of a jazzed up herbal tea. Mm-hmm. And I usually use that if I have a cold or something. I'll mix that with some tea and some honey, and that's kind of my little go-to cold killer there, or Corona.
Yeah, complimentary, very complimentary. I get a lot of cream soda.
Edit that word out before we get in.
Well, cream soda is a big one I get in rare breed rye. I'm sorry, Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye.
It's almost like this is a gross approximation, like a lemon bar. Like you talked about that vanilla, you talked about the lemon. And that's kind of what I get from the regular Russells is kind of this almost like cakey, vanilla-y, just really nice. Like there's not a lot of black pepper or spice or anything to it.
No. Yeah, it's more like, you get a lot of icing, a lot of citrus notes, herbal notes, honey, this type of thing. You can get pepper on the finish on these. I've gotten it before, but you're going to find more of that in the rare breed rye. But if we're going to taste that in a little bit, you'll see.
Yeah.
And, this particular Russell's, I want to say I paid $60, at Total Wine for it. And I know there's some other ryes out there that people chase far more than this one, but and I'm gonna throw Willet in there as one of them. But for Will, for Willet's, I've got a 4-year. It's 111 proof. I want to say it ran me about the same price. This hits me a lot. This hits me a lot better, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know what Willet's rye mash bill is that they use or how they do over there, but the Russell's really kind of hits my palate more.
I think with Willet, I mean, they have their own distillate, but a lot of their, single barrels, traditionally have been sourced. I guess those could come from about anywhere. But
other older ryes did.
Mm-hmm.
No, they had that 25-year that sat on the shelf for years, and then all of a sudden it was gone.
yeah. Those don't last, and people will pay a fortune for them. The ones that are out now that you typically see are their own, but I don't know what their mash bill is. But I've got one. It's great.
It's spicy. It's
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad whiskey by any means. It is very spicy though.
And they're expensive. I mean,
old whiskey.
Yeah, they're expensive for the the family estate bottles. They're not cheap.
Oh my Lord, yeah. What's you, Eric? What do you think?
I love it. I think it's a very approachable rye. If somebody doesn't like rye, it doesn't have like that punch of pepper or anything like that. That's kind of folks think are off-putting. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I have it in my cabinet now. It's delicious.
It's closer. It's like a bourbon drinker's rye.
Yeah. We make the comparison of a Scotch drinker's bourbon or a bourbon Scotch, or that's a good comparison. But what about you want to dive into the Rare Breed Rye real quick?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Now, the Rare Breed Rye, was it completely what the word I'm looking for is, was it completely kind of crowd sourced to Campari saying, hey, we want Rare Breed Rye, or was this a Bruce initiative solely?
I don't know much about the origin story. I do know that this was something that Bruce wanted. I know that at some point in time, he had told Eddie that this was something he really wanted. I know a lot of people, when the idea first started getting floated around about a Rare Breed Rye, people were going nuts, saying, we want this. I think I did a post where I made a fake label and put I took the Rare Breed label and put rye on it. And a lot of people were freaking out when I posted on Instagram. And they're like, and I was like, no, this was my wish list. It's not real. And, but I'm sure that they had been thinking of this, well before me or anybody else had said anything about it. Because you're always thinking about new products. I think that some of the issue was that, they only have so many rye stocks. So what are you going to do? Another thing was that, you had Cornerstone that they were working on and nobody knew about, but, that was where the rye focus was for a good period of time there until its release, getting that ready. Because, people don't realize that it's not like you just decide one day, well, I'm going to make this limited time offering and just dump a bunch of barrels together and let's get a label going, start the box, and let's put it in. Okay, a couple months later, it's like this stuff is thought about.
Yeah, you got to think about it about a decade ago to get ready for it.
I mean, at least a year or two, but you're starting, probably 2 years is when you start playing with this stuff and figuring out what you're going to do, what you're going to call it, what's going to taste like, So, Cornerstone had the focus for a while. And then I was at a barrel pick with Eddie, and I was asking him about the rye, and he said, well, we're working on a Rare Breed Rye. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. He told me, it's going to be 4, 6, 8 years old. And I said, that's going to be perfect. Cause with rye, you don't have to have as much age to have a good product,
right?
A palatable product, I should say. And that's not saying that, mature ryes aren't good, because they're fantastic. I'm just saying you don't have to get up there to have something special with rye. So when he said that, I was like, well, that I want it now. So I was just so excited for this one.
I thought about quitting my job and going to go work for Wild Turkey so I could accidentally dump some rare breed rye and rare breed, regular bourbon into the same, so they could
day one
a rare breed forgiven.
Yeah. Day one. Oh, what did I do? Oops.
Yeah, darn, put the wrong, push the wrong button. Went to do rare breed forgiven,
Yeah. It's my biggest fear was that is it going to be that much different than what they have already with 101 and the single barrel, and to my surprise, it has its own profile to it. It fills a niche. It's much like rare breed is kind of 101 kicked up.
Yeah.
Rare breed rye is just 101 rye kicked up enough where it's a big enough difference where it tastes different than the single barrel rye. It's not like, you're just getting the same thing.
Even, now we're nosing the rare breed rye. Surprisingly, with it being 112 proof, I get a much lighter nose than I did with the single barrel that I have.
Yeah. It's not nearly as fragrant, and I'm getting
a lot more honey.
A lot more honey. I'm actually getting some spices that I didn't get with the single barrel.
Mm-hmm. On the nose, it noses very much like 101 rye to me. It has the nose does not scream higher proof. The nose is very much like 101 rye. Now, when it hits the palate and especially the finish, that's when you realize that this is not 101 rye. This is different. But yeah, the nose is a little deceiving with this whiskey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This more kicks in the back right here at the tonsils.
Yeah. If you like a good tingle, this is a good one to have. It's got a lot of that sweet, peppery,
what we call it, honey habanero. Is that what we call it?
Mango habanero. Yeah.
Mango habanero.
That's a good. I have never thought about using that descriptor. That is a good descriptor.
Where it's a fruity pepper.
Heat. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. This was one that when I found out rare breed rye was coming out, I was like, okay, I've got to get it. Eric had turned me on to Turkey enough that I was like, I got to get it, and I got it, and I brought it home, and I was like, this is amazing.
So, David, I turned him on to Turkey with the Dusty sampler that I got from you.
Oh, cool.
So Eric and I saved those, and Eric lives in Gaines. We're both from Georgia originally.
Mm-hmm.
South Georgia. I'm from Northwest Georgia. Yeah, he came down to visit. He's in Gainesville now, but he came down to visit, and I said, I got some turkey that you'll never drink ever again. And I was like, and I've never tried them. I was like, we're gonna hit these together. And
those are good ones to share.
Oh man, they were so good.
First one we hit was that Cuvée Lafayette.
That thing, and that was thanks to I don't have a bottle of it. David James had sent me a hefty 200 milliliter sample of it. Same thing he did with I've got a 1955 rye, 101 rye, and then a 61 101 bourbon, which I just reviewed last week, which strangely tasted almost just like Master's Keep Bottled and Bond, which was I was like, there's no way I've got to do this side by side. And I did. And I was like, the nose is more like the original 17 year, but the taste and the finish are more like the Bottled and Bond. And so this is a 61 101, and it just blew my mind. But David James is just I don't know if y'all follow him on Instagram, but if you don't,
I do.
You need to, because the pictures of his collection are just sick. I mean, it's just crazy. If y'all think I'm a turkey fan, y'all need to check him out. He's the deal.
I'm more of a Master's Keep fan, right, Eric?
Yeah. A collector.
The Master's Keep line is, what I like about it is that it's not just rehashing the same thing over and over again. They're doing something really different every time, way different. And so if one doesn't appeal to you, I'm pretty sure by now you're going to find one that does, and they're pretty easy to kind of push people towards. If they like that core turkey profile, they're not really a rye fan or a finished whiskey fan, they just like a bourbon profile, you push them towards decades. If they like a mature lower proof whiskey, you're going to go to the original 17 year. You know, if they like a mature whiskey with like some heavy oak and a nice long finish, you're going to push them towards the bottle and bond. If they like finish, you go to the Revival. If you like rye, you're going to go to Cornerstone. It's like, you know, they've got this whole, you know, in each year is just a new thing, you know. So I love that.
They did a really good job with that, and I compare them to kind of how Luxrow has done with Blood Oath. Blood Oath kind of has been doing the same thing.
Trying to do something different every time.
Something different every year, and that master distiller, I forget his name, but he had blatantly said, he goes, these are not going to be the same. They're going to be, they're my own blends, and I'm tasting them, and I respect that more than anything. It's just, you know, Blood Oath did it. You know, the Masters Keep series has done it, and a little bit on the Parker's Heritage collection.
Parker's does some different things. You know, they were doing it before Masters Keep,
right?
And Woodford's done it too. Now, Woodford just hasn't been that successful with it. You know, I think some of them are hit or miss because some of them are out there and they're like a chocolate one or something. I mean,
there was a chocolate malted rye. There was a brandy cask finish. I know there was a couple like ones that were done with oats previous, and there was there was like
Cherrywood, I think, was one.
There was a sweet corn, and then then like a red corn. And
if you go too far, you lose that center audience, you know. So I think Wild Turkey's done a good job of staying, you know, they haven't gone too crazy with it.
Right, and I'm interested to see what this year's Parker's Heritage is, and compared to because the past, I don't know if you noticed this, but this is just me being a weird conspiracy theorist. The year that Turkey came out with the Revival, you know, Parker's came out with the Curacao. And then the next year, the Cornerstone came out, and they came out with the Heavy Char Rye.
Huh.
Interested to see if Parker's comes out with a bottled and bond high age.
Well, now they did do a bottled and bond 3 years ago, right?
A little before, but it was the 24-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say it was like 2014 or 20 something like that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. You know, I haven't had I bought the only Parker's I ever bought was the malt. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't my thing. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't a profile that I was crazy about. So I donated to someone, and they loved it. They were happy to have it.
Right.
Which, you know, win-win there. You know, I love that about this community is like when I have open bottles that I'm not the biggest fan of, I'm not just going to sit and hold on to them forever. You know, I don't care what's on the label.
I gave Eric a bunch when he came down here. I gave him a bottle of Blanton's. Yeah. I'm not a Blanton's fan. I've tried to like it, but I just couldn't. And then I was like, hey, he likes it. It's his, you know?
Well, I mean, I gave a William LaRue Weller away. People were like, what? It's like, yeah, it was great. But, you know, William LaRue Weller is to me is one of those like mood pours that, like, you know, if I'm in the mood for that super high proof, you know, weeder hot profile, you know, to be honest with you, I really only enjoy William LaRue Weller with a drop or two of water in it. You kind of have to do something to open it up. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine was a Weller fan, and I was like, you know, dude, you would appreciate this more than me. So I gave him like half the bottle, and he was thrilled, you know. And I think that's kind of one of the good things about, not kind of, it's definitely one of the good things about this community is that, you know, sharing is a very cool and fun thing to do, you know.
Right. I've got a friend sitting here listening in on our conversation. He never had some like well-aged turkey, and I spoiled him and gave him a drop or two of that 17-year Japan only export.
Wow, that's a good one. That one's up there. That's like one of the best ones ever.
Next time I see Eric, I'll let him try it. But
what was the other one you and I did? It was the Cuvée Lafayette and.
We did that one. It was like the donut. It was a wild turkey donut, and then we had it was an early 90s 101 and a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I didn't really care for the donut that much.
The donuts, I've never had a bad one. but I've had some that are better than others.
It wasn't off-putting. It just wasn't what it wasn't what I was expecting. I guess that's what
and the problem with the donuts, I don't know what your fill level was, but unfortunately, a lot of them have kind of borderline to low fill levels because that cork is just crap in the donuts. Very rarely do you ever see a full donut. I mean, it's slim, and you're lucky to even get it out. Like that's probably the ones that break the most are the donuts. But some are better than others. But that 17101 is one of the best turkey expressions ever bottled. I like the Master Distiller, selection a little bit better. I'm talking about the one that was from I think it was 2006, the export only one that was I think it was 107 proof or something like that. I'd have to look up the specs, but that one's killer. But they're very close to one another. The 17101 is phenomenal.
Yeah, my two favorite turkeys I've ever drank were I want to say it's a 2002 rare breed.
Yep, those 0199s are awesome.
That was easily in my top five, and and that oddball 17-year Master's Keep is still hands down my favorite.
The first one, the 86 proof one.
First one, yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but to me, it drinks like a turkey scotch. That's why I like it.
I can see that's a good description for it. To me, the nose is stellar.
Oh my gosh!
It's got a lot going on in that nose.
Very perfumed.
I'm expecting a little bit more once it hits the palate and finish that I'm just not getting. But I could see someone else thinking that it's perfect. You're not the only one that feels that way. I'm pretty sure Josh, the whiskey jug, Josh Peters, that's his favorite one. I'm pretty sure. And there's several. I know Blake Bourbonar. He loves the 17-year original one. So there are a lot of people that. I love it too. It's just not my favorite, but
right.
But I could easily see someone finding it their favorite.
Right. Yeah. To circle back around to our rye conversation here now, to wrap it up, at the price points that these are at. So I want to say, what was it, $62, Eric, for that rare breed rye, roughly?
I think I paid about the same for the single barrel and the rare breed.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll even kill them and say they're both 60.
For me, there's a $10 difference where I'm at.
Okay. So my question to you, David, do you feel that they punched at that weight?
Well,
I know you're honest.
I think they're priced right. I mean, okay, and here's why. The single barrel rye for me is $69, and the rare breed rye is $59. So there's a $10 difference. With the single barrel rye, you're getting a little bit more of a mature rye expression, but you're also getting it at 104 proof. So there's some dilution there. It's non-chill filtered, but so is rare breed rye. So rare breed rye is non-chill filtered. It's 112.2 proof, full barrel proof, and it may not be as mature, but it's got that going for it. So to be $10 cheaper than the single barrel rye, I think it's priced right based on supply and demand. Wild Turkey rye supply is pretty low, especially in comparison to the bourbon. If you priced it too low, it's going to be gone. Look at how fast it's already selling at the price it's at.
Right.
So if you look at it from the economic side, I think Campari priced it where it needed to be priced. I mean, it's not sitting on shelves, that's for damn sure.
Right.
So to me, I think it's priced right. It's its own profile, barrel proof. So if we're not NCF, like how the bourbon is chill filtered. If the rye were chill filtered as well, then I might say, well, you've got it priced a little bit high. But I think it's about where it needs to be, $50, $59, $60.
I agree with that. I believe in the grand scheme of things, where I've seen people pay $100 for a 4-year rye, this is punching its weight and more. I think it tastes very well for how much it costs, and pretty affordable for a solid quality rye.
Definitely. Yep.
I think
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think just in the grand scheme of cask strength whiskeys in general, it's at the bottom of the pack as far as price. I mean, you've got cask strength going anywhere from, the $55-$60 point up to, 100 plus. And with that in mind, I think it beats all those upper end players out. It's just a great flavor. Proof is, I mean, the proof is, I think, very approachable for a cask strength. I don't think it's too hot, even for your kind of novice drinker. I don't feel slighted at all, but that's just me.
Yeah. There was someone online, it might've been on Twitter, I can't remember, but they were like, why would you pay $60 for rare breed rye when you can get Russell's Reserve single barrel rye and it's better? And I'm like, well, you just threw a subjective term in there. Like,
it's two different profiles.
Better. Yeah. They're two different profiles. Somebody else may prefer rare breed rye. And then you just have to ask yourself, is that profile worth it? Like you just mentioned, Eric, there are other barrel proof rye whiskeys out there that are more expensive. I've seen 4-year rye whiskeys at barrel strength that are more expensive than this one. So, I don't think that they're asking anything crazy. Pricing is always kind of a strange thing. People, it's so easy to look at 101 bourbon, okay, and see how cheap it is and say, well, 101's only this. I'm just going to buy a handle of this and say whatever. It's like, yeah, but this ain't 101 bourbon. Right. This is rare breed rye. And I would say that with rare breed or Russell's Reserve single barrel or whatever. Is the profile different? And that's why, if you scroll back our conversation, I talked about when rare breed rye came out, I was concerned that my biggest fear was that it wouldn't have its own identity. Was I going to taste this and be like, God, this just tastes like Russell's Reserve single barrel rye? And it doesn't. It has its own, it occupies its own niche in the portfolio. And for that, I feel like it's worth the price point if that's the profile you like.
I take a random sip of that rare rye. I got a juicy fruit flavor on the
yeah, I can see that.
But not to wrap it up real quick. Oh, I wanted to tell you. I know you deal with Zeke and John over at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Zeke and I actually went to school together.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's got some age on him, but we're from a county of about 500. We've met,
Cool.
But we were in the same Boy Scout troop, the whole 9 yards, and
Zeke's a good dude.
I've known Zeke a long time, and he's a card, but I'm glad they got a good thing going with the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. It's been one of my favorite podcasts out there.
Yeah, their episode with Bruce is my favorite. It's such a good episode. One of the best whiskey interviews really around, because just Bruce is so laid back and he's just so informative, and it was a great conversation to listen to.
Wonderful. Well, David,
I actually have I want to fanboy out and ask a couple questions about your book.
Go ahead, man.
I'm trying to go to bed, Eric. God bless.
You ain't got to put the kids down. No, so I bought the book on Kindle. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you, man.
So I just want to know, so the interviews you listed, are those interviews that you actually did with those folks with Thomas Ripy and the Russells? What was that like?
Okay, so they weren't all sit-down interviews. So, like, for example, the times I basically considered any time I sat down and talked to Eddie, or Jimmy, an interview.
Right.
With Bruce, it was, I met him at the distillery for the first time, and we had some conversations. Joanne was the tour guide for me whenever me and my Patreon group went, and then I had some questions for her. So I consider any time I had any type of communication with them where they gave me answers that were used in my book, an interview with Thomas Ripy. He and I struck up an email exchange very early on when I first started doing research. Before I'd even put a word to paper, I had reached out to him about some questions because of my timeline, and things just kind of grew from there. And, when my wife suggested I do the book, those conversations escalated. His wife, isn't in the best of health. And so he didn't have a lot of time. So emails like what worked best for us there. But so, these were multiple conversations with Eddie. you know, and then I spent time with Jimmy at the distillery one-on-one. He and I had a very good, you know, hour-long conversation there. So it wasn't like, you know, I picked up the phone and called him every day and stuff like that, you know. But so yeah, it was one-on-one with a combination of with email, and there were a lot of other people I talked to as well that were very helpful, that worked for Campari and Wild Turkey, that you know, gave me a lot of information. And if you read the acknowledgments, you'll see a lot of those names in there, folks that helped me along the way. Yeah, it's, you know, I look back now, and it was so stressful at the time writing the book. It just, but looking back now, like I kind of miss it because it was so fun, because it was like trying to put a puzzle together, because it's not like the whole story's out there. You have to kind of find pieces from different places and then figure out where they fit. And because, you know, not everybody remembers everything perfectly. So it takes a lot of vetting and confirmations and going to multiple sources, and then those sources would conflict. So you have to go to another source to try to see if you can verify those two sources. It's a lot of work, and it was a lot of stress, but looking back, I only have good memories of it. A lot of fun.
That's awesome.
I've enjoyed the book. I read it 2 times. Just first time I read it pretty hardcore. Second time, obviously kind of glanced through it, but it has been a great read.
Thank you.
I bought a book when it first came out, and then I got my signed copy, and so I'm going to give the first one I bought to Eric when I say him, but he got a mechanical copy, but I want him to have a physical one. So
good. Yeah. That's, I mean, that's what it's there for, you know, to share. Yeah. I'm on my second printing now. Those should be done probably in the next week or two. Those should start, you know, well, they should leave the warehouse, and then shortly after that, start going out to anybody that's pre-ordered for that second printing. So I'm excited about that. To have it sell out so quickly, that was a big shock and pretty humbling. So very, very, very happy and thankful.
Now, am I correct in saying this isn't just a bookie about Wild Turkey, or a book about Wild Turkey? This is the book about Wild Turkey, right?
Well, it's the only one that I'm aware of. So right now, I guess it's the one. I'm definitely going to keep it updated. There will be a second edition at some point in time. I'm actually talking with the gentleman now whose father worked at Wild Turkey during the 60s, even before you know, Jimmy was master distiller, and he knew Mr. Hughes. And I wish I had found him before this book, because I could have elaborated a little bit more on Bill Hughes. But, you know, that's what a second edition is for. So, you know, the next time around, you should see more information on Bill Hughes, as well as some insight into the distillery at that time, when Jimmy kind of started to the point where he became master distiller. Because, you know, that kind of area, I didn't have a whole lot to go from other than stories that Jimmy had shared with me.
Cool deal.
Very cool.
Well, David, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know it was kind of a short notice. I know you're busy, man.
Oh man, that's okay. Sorry if you heard any noise in the background. The family and I we went out for a walk, and the kids got back, and you know they're still up playing and stuff. It's the end of their summer here. They start school and on Monday, so you know, we're kind of letting them have a good last run here.
Well, the reason I'm able to stay up this late is because my wife and kids are out of town. So
okay.
I got a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old.
Yeah, that'll keep you busy, man. Enjoy those years, man.
They're wonderful.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thanks again for coming on, man. And like I said, I appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you on again for some other turkey.
Sure, man. Absolutely, anytime. This was a great time. I enjoyed it.
Eric, you want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Eric's Drink Whiskey. Also give Rare Bird 101 a follow at Rare Bird 101. If you haven't, what's that?
Buy his book.
Buy his book. It is.
Wow, thank you.
It is fantastic. You won't put it down, I guarantee it. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to us on Instagram and turn on notifications so you can know when we have new stuff dropping. But from us to you, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.